Another argument that makes absolutely no sense. We're talking about background checks and more specifically expanding background checks into person to person sales. Those are already in law, so quit pushing laws that take away the rights of law abiding citizens. First of all, it is not a law that private gun sales have to submit to background checks. That is not a federal law. It is a law in some states, in some blue states, in California and Illinois and places like that. But that is not a federal law. And in 33 states, you do not have to subject a private sale to a background check. You just don't. So, right off the bat, no, that's not already a law. But more importantly, how is passing a background check taking your rights away? That's what you said here, right? You said here, quit pushing laws that take away the rights of law-abiding citizens. How is passing a background check taking your rights away from you? Have you passed a background check, sir? Do you own guns, sir? If that's the case, how did passing that background check take your right to own a gun away from you if you own guns? Passing a background check does not take your right away from you. That's not how any of that works. If you were denied the right to buy a gun, then you could argue that your rights were being taken away from you. But as we've learned throughout the course of mankind, throughout the course of the history of this country, no law is absolute. Every law comes with limitations. Every law comes with stipulations. For example, you have a right to free speech, but you do not have a right to print something that's liable to somebody. You can get taken to court. You can get sued, right? You have a right to free speech, but you do not have a right to incite violence or a riot. You have a right to free speech, but thankfully you do not have a right to possess and distribute child porn. So your right to free speech is limited, right? You have a right, excuse me, you have a right to practice your religion. However, you can't just take a goat into the town square at high noon and sacrifice it if that's what your religion calls for. For example, the Rastafarian religion, or in the Rastafarian religion, the consumption of green beans is part of the religion. Can I just go anywhere I want if I'm a Rastafarian and smoke up? No, I can't, because my rights have limitations. And the Second Amendment also has limitations. We've put limitations on ourselves through the legal system in regard to the Second Amendment. And one of those restrictions is that if you have a violent history, you've caused physical harm to people, you have a history of armed robbery, we're not going to let you have a fucking gun because you're a dangerous human being, right? But for everybody else who can take and pass a background check, you get to then go buy guns. So your rights to own a gun have not been taken from you just because you had to pass a background check. Now, I would argue, if you want to make a valid and conscious argument, I would argue that it is unconstitutional to charge you for that background check. It's unconstitutional to charge you for a FOID card in Illinois. It's unconstitutional for there to be a financial cost in order to verify that you're not a dangerous human being in order to buy a gun, because that's very much akin to a poll tax. You're charging somebody financial restitution. You're charging somebody a financial cost for them to be able to exercise their rights that are protected in the Constitution. It's the same reason why I'm against sales tax on guns. Sales taxes are placed on products by governments, and if a government charges you to buy a gun, a sales tax, then they're charging you for your right to exercise your Second Amendment right to own a gun. So I'm against sales tax on guns too, but even if I have to pay that sales tax to buy a gun, right, I'm still not having my rights taken away from me if I can still buy and possess the gun. So no, your rights have not been taken from you because you had to pass a background check. You just don't like the fact that you had to pass a background check, and nobody really gives a fuck if you don't like it or not. That's the way society works. But it's not pushing a law that would take your right away from you.